This is Snake. I mean Bryan. Kept you waiting, huh?
Snake, I know outside in your house in Mobile it looks like Shadow Moses. Broke a century record snowfall.
And my nanomachines are busted.
Snake, enough of that small talk. Your mission is to review the Metal Gear Solid board game.
Kinda meta, huh?
No, that happens in the sequel. Anyway, this is a full review of Metal Gear Solid, the board game. You need to find out if this is a serious attempt at a game or some decoy boss you're never actually going to play.
Now who's being meta?
Everything is to be obtained on site. Let us know if this game is worth its salt.
Salt? Isn't that the Nuclear Proliferation Act?
Snake, we don't have time for Bryan's antics.
Alright, I'm commencing review mission now.
This is McDonald Miller.
Oh yeah, you were way cooler in the prequel games.
How dare you, brother?
Snake, do you really love any board game?
Well, you weren't expecting that intro, were you? That's right, I used to do intros like that all the time. But question of the day, what is your favorite IP, period? Mine is Indiana Jones, with a close second is Metal Gear Solid, the whole Metal Gear series, including 1 and 2, which I know the story of, but I never played because they're on the MSX, and I can play them on the Master Collection, but it kind of feels like a step down in quality when you're playing 4 and 3 and 5 and all that, and then you go down to 1, 2. Not Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Those are great, but Metal Gear 1 and 2. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of little notions here. And if I could have figured out how to do the 12 frame per second cutscenes from Metal Gear Solid, the original on PlayStation, I would have done it, but I can't figure out how to do them on this. So you'll just see random characters. You're pretty good. And impressions, because I love the Metal Gear characters. Let's see. Let's run through them real quick. This is Snake. Colonel. This is Roy Campbell here. The Roy Campbell's my weakest. Let's see. Well, brother. A little nasally. Not the best today. Who else we got? What about Psycho Menace? I want to kill as many people as possible. Not a great impression. This is McDonald Miller. I'm way cooler in Metal Gear Solid 5 and Peace Walker. Because I'm not even... Spoiler. Who else we got? I don't know if I can do a Kiefer Sutherland. Kept you waiting, huh? And then you're like, who's that guy? When he says it, you're like, you did keep me waiting because I haven't seen you since 24 and the Three Musketeers. Anyway, let's talk about the game right now. All right, this is it. I have waited for this game for years. Now, I'm in the middle of the Ocelot fight. So this is mission 4, if you count the missions. The intro, the heliport, the next one, and then here we are, Ocelot. And the reason I want to show you this is because this plays differently than the rest of the game. Hadn't finished painting Ocelot yet, but I have definitely painted up Snake. Haven't finished highlighting him yet, but oh my gosh, the miniatures just look incredible. Of course, had to paint my favorite villain and favorite boss fight, quite possibly in all games. Psycho Menace. Oh, sweet Coden. Yeah, just great. That moment when he moves your controller still gets me. So good that they reference it in Astrobot, which also a great game. Now let's start. Like, this is not going to be a full I'm not going to teach you every mission, because what's great is, and I will show you this, in the Shadow Moses, which by the way, our outside looks like Shadow Moses right now. We've got this, and it says stage 1. Don't learn the game from anything else. Learn it from here. So it's a sneaking stage. You got Roy Campbell talking to Snake. Now, this is the non-pre-order one. If you pre-order it, it's also got the comic book in it. It's incredible. But what's great is it tells you how to play the game. Yes, all the mechanics are here. You know, it's got the whole thing. This is Snake. Colonel, can you hear? Loud and clear. What's the situation, Snake? Looks like the elevator in the back is the only way up. Just as I expected. You'll have to take the elevator to the surface, but make sure nobody sees you. Let's go over some of the basics in case you need a refresher. And then it teaches you the game. What's great is there's this book, there's the rule book, there's the VR missions, which by the way are awesome, because if you get the one thing about this game that's interesting is Emerson made a very wise choice. You could have chosen to go, okay, if you're playing at 4, you get Meryl, Snake, the ninja. Where's my ninja? Hold on, I got him out here somewhere too painted. What doggone? Oh, here he is. You could have played as Meryl, Snake, the ninja, and Otacon, and you just all are in the elevator room or the dock, but he didn't do that. If you're playing at 4 players in a mission that requires only 1 character, you all play as that 1 character and just make choices for him. That is, to me, the brilliant choice of not compromising on a theme in order to make a player happy or whatever, right? You got the SOCOM here. It's called the 45 cal there. We can't call it SOCOM. I guess that's a rights thing. Ration. Now, what's really awesome, notice that at the bottom of every one of these is a codec number. That is because in the codec book, you can go and look up all these codecs and have conversations with people about items, about bosses, about everything. It so feels like it. So this is the board here for the Ocelot fight. It says when shooting through the yellow dashed lines, deal 1 damage to Baker per dice roll of the exclamation mark. And these exclamation mark are going to be your bane throughout the entire game. Now this is a boss fight, so it's different. You're going to use Ocelot's cards here. So right here is the main area. You're going to start Snake over here, and then you'll have guards on the board based on where they tell you to start. So let's just say, for instance, here, and they have facing. Guards have facing, whereas you do not, because you can see all directions at once. Now this is part of the stealth mode. Now you're going to take actions on your turn. You'll get 4 different actions on your turn. The ones that are covered up would be during a boss fight. You don't have access to those. You have sneak, move a space. Dash, move 2 spaces, but roll a dice per noise you make at the end of the round, or at the end of the turn. And if you come up with an exclamation mark, you'll put Snake's alert thing out there to where they know he's there in that space. Now you can move away from it, you can get away from that, obviously, just like any stealth game, you're hiding from it, but that's part of that. Now you can knock as well. If you knock on the wall, you'll put the, huh? What was that noise? And they will start turning towards that. And the guards, their actions or reactions, the guards will follow a flow chart if then do this. So case in point, if there's a knocked out guard on there, he drops to 1. If he's knocked out with 1, he drops to 0 and wakes back up, just like the game. Cameras will turn directions. There's no cameras in the first mission. If it's an alert, they will move 5 spaces and they will move towards that symbol. If it's not on patrol, or if they see in their line of sight this, a dead soldier or a knocked out soldier, you'll put the notion there and they'll start moving towards it. Otherwise, they'll move 5 spaces. When they hit a wall, they'll turn the correct direction towards, if you have to make a choice, let's say here, we have to make a choice here, but it tells you based on this, they'll turn left. So he will turn left here. If you land on these, they'll turn based on this as well. Otherwise, if you don't have a choice, you'll just move him towards the most sensical thing. So he would start moving here and continue moving that direction. You can combo attack. You'll roll those dice, and it deals knockout damage, so you can knock out the guards. You can then focus, which allows you to use these actions, which you have later on in the game. You can drag a body. If there's one there, you can pick it up and move it to get it out of eyesight. And then you can interact by hitting a terminal. You can knock on a wall, or you can do a silent takedown, which kills them. Now, what's great about this is also Snake has a couple powers down here. You start with nothing. On-site procurement, huh? Or whatever. It tells you all about Snake there. And then all the other characters play a little differently if you're playing as him in a later mission or in a VR mission. Now, the other thing you can do that's important is line of sight. So the way line of sight works is between 2 characters with facing. So this character is facing Snake. He obviously has line of sight here. You'll draw a box around your square to their square. And if there's nothing impeding it, you don't have a line of sight. So case in point here, even though it seems like he's right there, because the box has to be drawn around those 4 squares, this is in there, he cannot see him, which allows you to, just like in the game, use stealth in a quick way. And same here, this guard does not have line of sight to Snake because he's facing the wrong direction. Now, when it gets a little tricky is when it's facing this direction, because no, he's behind it. But if it were this, there's not really a good place to show this on this map because it is so small and there's a lot of hidden stuff. But let's say, well, there's not. But anyway, if it's bigger, you would draw the squares bigger, obviously. And this is the only difference, too, from the game. If you run out of guards because you've killed them, more guards will come out based on the radio signal on these guard order cards. You'll play your turn, the guards will take their turn. You'll play your turn, the guards will take their turn until you finish the objective of the mission. This is the basic one. You would then go to the heliport next, and yes, you're right. Just like you thought it would be, the SOCOM is where it should be, chaff grenades are where they should be, and you'll get a ration at the end of that, too. Rations can be used as an action to discard, to eat the ration and remove 2 damage. The game plays like this. You'll play through the mission. You'll play through the entire story of Metal Gear Solid. And my gosh, is it done well. Like the bosses feel like the boss fights. The sneaking missions feel like the sneaking missions. And oh my gosh, is it captured well. This is Metal Gear Solid from Emerson Matsuuchi.
Kept you waiting, huh? I never expected a reviewer to be so much of a wrestling fan.
Anyway, let's do Metal Gear Solid. The concept is a 10. First of all, favorite IP when it comes to video games of all time. It's a 10 because I love it. This is not objective, okay? You may not like Metal Gear Solid, so obviously the concept's not going to be a 10 for you. For me, it's a 10 because of how it's done. It's done in such a way where it's not just, oh, what if we throw some characters together and you play like a PvP shooting game? No, it's not that at all. The first mission, when you lay that out there and you see the top-down map of the very first room of the game, it's fantastic. It's just gorgeous. It looks great. Then you sneak around based on the guards. The only changes Emerson made to the intro, are the fact that more guards can come out of that little shack that's not a shack in the PlayStation game, but that's irrelevant. So it's a 10. And it handles the stealth really well. The game is stealth-based. Plus you can knock. Plus you can pick up the bodies. And they wake up and the cameras move and all that stuff. It's fantastic. Plus, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Board layout, it's a 9. I love the way it looks. It's fantastic. My only gripe is, and this is the only reason why I dropped it a point, and don't hurt me for this, Emerson, or don't hold this against me, but in the mission, because you're going top, left to right, top to bottom, I would rather have seen the board turned this way for that opening level. And the helipad works, but the opening level and a couple others, I wanted to see it from my angle. So it's not really a big deal. It's a 9.0 though, because of it. It does look great. Now, the only other thing I'm going to ding it for here is that the boards they're well made and the art's fantastic. Some of the best art you're going to see in board games because it's true to the game. They do warp a little bit though because they're a little thinner. So that's the only downside there. Mechanics are a 9 as well. You play as Snake. If you play as 2 players, you play as Snake and Meryl when you can, story-wise. But there's also VR missions, and there's also other things like that where you can go and fight the bosses in VR missions and stuff like that. But if you're playing the first mission at 4 players, you all play as Snake and decide together. To me, that's a really cool lack of compromise. It's choosing not to go, well, we'll just put all the characters in there and say they got there somehow. No, that is smart, and it's true to the source. So, 9 for that. The mechanics are 9. Art direction, 9.0 as well. All the symbols make sense. It does get a little tricky sometimes when trying to follow the guard cards and the guard reaction cards. But other than that, it's very straightforward. Everything makes sense. The art is a 10. The miniatures are fantastic. As I showed you, I painted mine up. Art's a 10. The boards are 10. The character components are a 10. The only thing I wish I had was that Metal Gear 3D, the 3D model of Rex, and I wish I had the comic book, but I've read it, the comic book instructions. It's so good, so good. So the art direction's a 9, art's a 10. Gameplay, it's a 9. I just absolutely love how this plays. It feels like Metal Gear Solid. You're moving around stealthily. You're knocking to bring the guards to you. You can move around. You can knock out the guards. The boss fights feel exactly right. I've killed Kenneth Baker multiple times by trying to shoot Ocelot across there. How many times have we all done that? Especially in 1. Not Twin Snakes, because Twin Snakes cheated a little bit because you could use first-person view and shoot him. You never shoot Kenneth Baker in first-person mode. But in third-person mode of Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation, we absolutely shot Kenneth Baker multiple times. We walked through the tripwires. Now, this one prevents you from doing that, because obviously you can just back it up if you did it. But to me, it just handles it so well. You're playing Metal Gear. The boss fights feel like the boss fights. The regular sneaking parts feel like sneaking parts. The codec, the fact that you can call codec on certain items and things, it just feels like you're playing Metal Gear Solid. A PlayStation game, as a board game, as opposed to slapping an IP onto a game, which I knew Emerson wouldn't do that because the man loves Metal Gear as well, and I do too. So the rule book, it's the first one I've ever given, is a 10. This is a perfect rule book. The rules teach you the game just like the video game teaches you the game. It says don't even open the rule book. Open mission 1 and start playing. Colonel Campbell tells you, if you open you can use your blah, blah, blah. It teaches you the game in the mission. It's just like that. And then Mei Ling chimes in. Instead of telling you about the Soliton radar, she tells you about how to use the game components. Rulebook's a 10 out of 10. And if you have the pre-order version with the comics, it's like an 11 out of 10. It's like I'm Dave Meltzer here giving 7.5 stars out of 5. Just perfection when it comes to a rulebook. This is how rulebooks should be, especially for this type of game, because these types of games can be overwhelming, and this one is not. Bravo. So that brings us to a 9.5, which I think is the highest score I've ever officially given. I know it's the highest score I've given in the rubric system. 9.5, Metal Gear Solid is a masterpiece. If you love the IP, even if you don't love the IP, if you just love stealth games, this is a masterpiece. Emerson, I'm so glad this finally came out. I'm so glad it's here. I love this game. So, I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on X and Instagram at Dice Tower Bryan. Until next time, we'll see you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.